I'm Sharon Macklis at IDG Communications, here with episode 33 of Do More with R, Use Git and GitHub with your R projects. When a viewer suggested I cover Git version control, my first reaction was, I don't have an hour. But thanks to RStudio and the Use This package, Git with R has become a bit easier. Let me show you. There are a couple of non-R initial system setup tasks that I won't be doing. One is installing Git on a system. You can find Git at git-scm.com/downloads. You can see that here. Or just Google install Git. You need this if you want Git version control on your local system. If you want to sync your local project with a GitHub repository, you'll also need to set up a free GitHub account at github.com. If you have trouble with these setup steps, I highly recommend checking out Happy Git and GitHub for the user at happygitwithr.com by Jenny Bryan and Jim Hester. Check out chapters 4, 6, and 7 for setup, including telling Git your name and email address, which is important. If you forget to do that, though, RStudio will prompt you with the Git commands you need. Those need to be run in a terminal window, not the RStudio R console. But now to the R and RStudio part. First, you'll need to tell RStudio you want to use Git. In RStudio, go to Tools, Global Options, Git/SVN. Make sure the box Enable Version Control Interface for RStudio Projects is checked. You'll also need to tell RStudio where your Git executable is. You can see where mine is here. On a Mac, it's likely to be at user local bin git or user bin git. On Windows, look for the git.exe file somewhere like C Program Files Git bin. Next, I'll create a new project in RStudio. I'll do this in a new directory, new project, Git and R, and make sure the checkbox for create a Git repository is checked. I'll create the project. You'll see I have a Git tab here in addition to my usual environment, history, and connections tabs, and that will become important soon. First, let me make a file. Just do a test file here. I'm going to make a function just to play here. This could be any code. I'm going to save this file, call it test. To use Git version control on this file, I need to commit that file. That registers it with Git. Any future commits save the changes made since the previous commit. So why would you do this? One reason, because Git lets you revert back to a previous version of the file. No more need to save multiple versions of a file. Script working.r, script final.r, script really final.r. To commit a file with Git in RStudio, go to the Git tab in the top right pane here. First, select one or more files by checking the box here. That stages the file, which roughly means you've marked it as ready to be committed. To actually commit the file, click the Commit button right here, just above this pane. That opens up the commit window. Type in a commit message, a note explaining a little bit about this commit. In this case, it's my first commit. So I'll just type initial commit. Then click this second commit button here, and it's been committed. I can close this dialog and close the commit window. Next, I'm going to make a change to the file that I won't like, one that I'm going to want to undo. So let me do that. Maybe I'll make this a character string. Oops. make a couple of more changes so it'll be easy to see. This could be anything. I'm just testing Git. Okay, I'm going to save this, and I'm going to commit this again. Notice I need to restage it by clicking here, and then I want to hit the commit button. I need to type another message here. Note that this is showing the changes I've made in the file. Change, I will later undo. I'll click commit, and close this, and close the commit window. Now obviously this change would be easy to correct without Git, but changes you'd like to roll back can of course be a lot more complex and involve more than one file. So how can you get back to an earlier version of a file or project you committed? First you need to get the Git ID of that commit, called an SHA or SHA. Okay, go back to the Git tab here and click the diff button and then history. See the history button here? You can see all your project commits here with their commit messages here. Hopefully you can see why having descriptive commit messages is useful here. I'll copy the SHA I want to revert to. That would be this one. And I'd like to copy that. All right, double check that I've copied it, and I'll close this window. For the Git rollback command, you need the RStudio terminal, not this R console. So go to Tools, Terminal, New Terminal, and you'll get a terminal window right here in RStudio. Then type git space reset space dash dash hard space and whatever the SHA was. Once again, that's git reset dash dash hard and the SHA. Now when I run this, look at the file up here and see what happens. Seriously, how cool is that? The file is back to its previous commit. Now let's say I'd like to create a GitHub repository for this committed version of my project file so I can sync back and forth between my local system and the cloud, all with version control. This is especially useful if I'm collaborating with one or more other people, but it's also useful as a cloud backup. I can do this right in R with the Use This package. So let me get back to my R console, load Use This, and then look at the help file for the Use GitHub function. Scroll down to the authentication section and you'll see you need to set up a GitHub personal access token. And there's a link you can click to do just that, right here. You can click this button to generate a new token. I usually just use the repo permissions here for my token. You scroll down and generate the token. Oh, sorry, I needed to put a note in here. This is my do more with R test second try. Now I'll generate my token. Okay, you get one crack at saving that token, so remember to copy it before you close the page. You can click this copy thing here, or define and copy it, and paste it. Very important, once you close out this page, it's going to be gone. Now, if you're not worried about anything super sensitive in your GitHub, the best way to store this is in your R environment file. Let's get back here. If you want to use this as edit_R_environment function, it will open up the R environment. And you want to add that token as GitHub_PAT equals, and in quotation marks. I've already done this with another token, but if you're doing this now, you would need to restart your R session so that the new R environment would take effect. Another water break. Hang on. If I had restarted R, I would need to reload the use this package, but it's already still here. So let's go to the next step, which is running the use_GitHub function. And I would like to use the protocol HTTPS. And for my authentication token, I would like to use what I just saved in my R environment, which is GitHub_PAT. Okay, that's auth token. Okay, so it's, once again, it's use_GitHub. I want the HTTPS protocol, and I want my auth_token to be what I saved in my R environment. I'm going to run this. It's going to ask me, am I sure? I'm going to say, yes, I am. It's creating the GitHub repository and setting up the syncing for me. Wait just a minute. And now I've got a GitHub repo that will easily sync with my local system. If you've done this before on the command line, no more manually setting up origins and masters to get your sync working. It just works. So if I make and commit another change, let me do that here. I'm going to call this X and then say return X, just so you can see a difference in the files. Save that, commit that. Commit to push to GitHub. Okay, I'm going to commit that. Close this dialog. Now if I'd like to sync it with GitHub, I just need to click the push button here at the top right. It says it's done. Now if I go back to my repo, refresh the page, and look at the file, it's got the changes. Even better, if there's a change in the cloud version, let's say someone else pushed their work into the same file. I don't have anyone else, so I'm going to edit it here myself. Next, adding a comment from GitHub. I'm going to commit that with a message here. GitHub changes, and commit them here. Now if I go back to my RStudio version and use the pull button to pull changes from GitHub down to my local system, close these dialogs, close this box, and you can see the file has been updated from the changes at GitHub. Pretty sweet. There's a ton more you can do with Git and GitHub, including setup so you don't have to keep entering your GitHub username and password if that's happening to you. And there are other cloud Git services besides GitHub, such as GitLab or Bitbucket, which you can investigate. But that's all I have time for this episode. Thanks for watching. For more R tips, head to the Do More with R page at go.infoworld.com/morewithR, all lowercase except for the R. You can also find the Do More with R playlist on the YouTube IDG Tech Talk channel. Hope to see you next episode.